And I have a little bit of a suspicion that King Alexander III, when he was riding his horse, he was listening to his AirPods at the time. I'm sure he was listening to something contemporary and very masculine, such as Barbie Girl, but I can't guarantee that. Now, as he's listening to these very masculine songs, he then doesn't see where he's going because of the lack of GPS device, and goes off a cliff and dies. You weren't expecting that, were you? But to be honest, neither was he. So he went off the cliff and died horrifically in a little village called Kinghorn. Like I say, we will drive to that little village later on today. So he went off a cliff and died. Now his granddaughter, Margaret, the Maid of Norway, was the only heir to the throne. And as the name suggests, Margaret, the Maid of Norway, was, well, in Norway. Now, she was on the boat on the way over to take over the throne after her grandfather passed away. But she actually died on the boat on the way over. Quite horrifically, actually. It's suspected, it's thought that she died of quite a severe case of seasickness, which is horrific. So, Margaret died on the way over. Now, Scotland didn't have an heir to the throne. So what do we do now? Well, the lords and nobles of Scotland decided to invite a man called Edward of England, King Edward I, up to Scotland to take over the throne. Because they knew, not to take over the throne, excuse me, to choose a new king to take over the throne. Because the lords and nobles of Scotland knew that this amazing king would come up to Scotland and treat it with the respect it deserves. And choose a new king that Scotland deserves. Spoiler alert, this did not happen. In fact, King Edward I brought soldiers up to Scotland, took over palaces, castles and cities, killed people, stole things. And over the next few years he decided that he was going to choose a king called John Balliol. Now John Balliol was Scottish, but he was loyal to King Edward, and that's why he was chosen as the next king of the Scots. So John Balliol was now the king of Scotland, but he was not able to rule independently. In fact, because he was so loyal to King Edward, he had a nickname, Tomb Tabard, which means empty cloak, because he was just a puppet for the king, King Edward. Now, over the next few years, John Balliol becomes quite angry and upset that he is not allowed to rule Scotland how he wants to. And so for that reason, he decides to ally with another country. A country that King Edward hated more than Scotland. France. So, John Balliol allied with France. And then King Edward started getting quite upset that he couldn't rule Scotland anymore, that he was losing his amazing newfound prize. So he decided for the second time he was going to invade Scotland. And that was in 1296. That is when a very famous man, like I've spoken about earlier, the very famous freedom fighter of Mel Gibson, came onto the scene. In fact, it was Sir William Wallace. Now, Sir William Wallace was not a rich man, but he wasn't a poor man either. And he wasn't a military leader or a soldier by any means of the imagination. He was, however, a very patriotic man. By the way, we are going to see the Kelpies for the final time as we drive past here. Wonderful. I'll slow down a little bit overtaking this truck so you can get a picture if you want, as if you've not already got good pictures of them already. However, I'll finish this in just a moment. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous sculptures. And so when King Edward invaded Scotland for the second time, William Wallace decided that he was going to ambush him. Now, there's a city called Stirling that we have here in Scotland. Now, in Stirling there was a very old, narrow wooden bridge. And William Wallace decided, along with another man called Anthony Moray, not to be confused with the famous tennis international Andy Murray, two different people, very similar names. Anthony Moray and William Wallace decided that they were going to ambush the English at the Stirling Bridge, that very narrow wooden bridge. Now, William Wallace and